In the Conference of the Birds, Mantiq al-Tayr, by Farid Attar, the valleys symbolize spiritual stages or trials that the seeker must traverse on their journey to find the Simurgh, which represents divine truth or God. Each valley reflects a different phase of spiritual enlightenment and purification. Attar describes 7 valleys, each representing a key stage of the mystical journey. 1. Valley of the Quest, Talab. The journey begins with a passionate search for divine truth. In this valley, the seeker renounces worldly attachments and embarks on the spiritual quest. Doubts and desires must be left behind. 2. Valley of Love, Ishq. Love dominates and consumes the seeker, burning away their ego. Love here is intense, irrational, and all-consuming, pushing the seeker to go beyond logic and personal desires. 3. Valley of Knowledge, Marifat. In this valley, the seeker gains spiritual insight and recognizes the mysteries of creation. This knowledge transcends intellect and is deeply intuitive, revealing hidden truths about the self and the divine. 4. Valley of Detachment, Istina. The seeker must detach from all worldly and spiritual possessions. This valley involves freedom from all ties, even from the need for divine rewards, focusing solely on the divine essence. 5. Valley of Unity, Tawheed. Here, the seeker realizes the oneness of all creation and the unity of existence. Duality dissolves, and the seeker perceives only God everywhere. 6. Valley of Bewilderment, Hayrat. In this valley, the seeker is overwhelmed by the vastness and incomprehensibility of divine reality. This stage is marked by humility and awe, as the seeker understands their limitations. 7. Valley of Poverty and Annihilation, Faqwa Fana. The journey culminates in the annihilation of the self, Fana, and complete submission to God. In this state, the seeker becomes poor in self and rich in God, realizing that they are one with the divine. Conclusion. Upon crossing these valleys, the birds that remain reach the Simurgh, only to realize that the Simurgh is a reflection of themselves. This profound revelation signifies that the divine truth lies within, and the journey is one of self-discovery and transformation. These valleys represent stages in Sufi mysticism and offer profound allegories for spiritual seekers striving to connect with the divine.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going on a mystical journey into the heart of Sufism, guided by Farid Attar's epic poem, The Conference of the Birds. You can think of it as our mystical treasure map, leading us through excerpts from the poem itself and Attar's biography.
It's like we're pilgrims alongside these birds, yeah. Each step revealing a deeper layer of Sufi wisdom.
I love that analogy. But before we get swept away by the feathered friends, right, let's quickly set the scene. Sufism, for anyone new to it, is a mystical branch of Islam that emphasizes a direct experience of the divine, less about rituals, more about an inner transformation, a journey to unite with God. Our mission today is to uncover Sufism's core tenets through Attar's lens and how he uses stories and allegories to illuminate the path.
It's fascinating how Attar weaves those complex ideas into these captivating stories. Like he understood that truth is sometimes best conveyed through stories that resonate deep within us.
Okay, so let's talk about the poet himself. Farid Attar. We know he was born in the 12th century in Nishapur, Iran, a vibrant hub that also gave birth to another famous poet, Omar Khayyam.
Attar was a true seeker of knowledge, traveling far and wide to places like Ray, Egypt, Damascus, Mecca, even India. Seems like his life was a pilgrimage in itself.
And like many mystics, he faced challenges. Accounts say he was tried for heresy and even banished, like other Sufi mystics like Nasir Castro.
Showing the tension that exists between mystical experiences and more orthodox interpretations of religion. The search for truth can be dangerous. It demands courage and conviction.
Now, diving into Sufism, what does Attar's work tell us about its core beliefs?
One of the central tenets, as reflected in his work, is the belief in the oneness of God. It was called Tawhid. Not simply acknowledging God exists, it's about understanding that only God truly exists. Everything else, the entire universe, is emanations or reflections of this divine source, like God is the sun, and everything else basks in its light.
That's a powerful image. Where does religion fit in?
Well, Attar believed that while religion can be a valuable stepping stone, the ultimate truth transcends the confines of any specific religious doctrine. He believed Islam was the most effective path, but it's about going beyond dogma to a direct connection with God, like using a boat to cross a river. Once you reach the other side, you don't need the boat anymore.
So from external form to internal essence.
Exactly. Attar's perspective is really interesting here. He believed that God, in his absolute unity, transcends our human notions of good and evil. He's beyond those dualities.
Our understanding is limited and can't grasp the infinite nature of the divine.
Exactly. Attar also talks about the soul being trapped within the body, but even trapped, it can recognize its connection to God through introspection.
Turning inward to uncover that spark of the divine within.
Yes, and Attar believed that. Guided by grace, the soul can move towards what's known as fana, annihilation in God. This might sound scary, like the soul is extinguished.
It does sound intense. Can you explain it a bit more?
Sure. Fana isn't about ceasing to exist. It's about the ego, dissolving, the separation from God, until only pure unity remains.
A drop of water,
Yeah.
verging back into the ocean, losing its form, but becoming part of something vast and limitless.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's fascinating to compare Attar's perspective with another Sufi mystic, Ibn Arabi, who saw no distinction between the creator and creation. Attar maintained a subtle distinction between God and his creation, even in this state of union, a delicate dance between unity and separation, a paradox, may be only understood through direct experience.
Speaking of direct experience, there's some mystery around Attar's Sufi instruction.
Yeah, some sources mention a Sufi master named Majd ad-Din al-Baghdadi of the Kubraya order. Others claim he only taught Attar medicine, not Sufism, adding to the enigma of his life.
And that story, made popular by Rumi, of Attar receiving guidance through dreams from the spirit of Mansur al-Hallaj, executed centuries before Attar, is like a transmission of wisdom across time and space.
It speaks to the mystical nature of Sufism, where knowledge can be transmitted in unconventional ways, the spiritual realm. It operates by different rules, often defying our logical understanding.
Now, the Conference of the Birds, what strikes me is how he uses stories and allegories to teach these Sufi ideas.
It's like he's presenting a series of riddles or koans, engaging not just our intellect, but also our intuition, imagination. Think of it like a spiritual puzzle box. Each story is a piece, when deciphered, reveals a deeper understanding of the Sufi path.
It reminds me of Zen Buddhist koans, those paradoxical sayings, or even Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress, right? Where every character and event has a deeper meaning.
Those are great comparisons. He uses obscurity and paradox in his stories, like he's challenging us to let go of easy answers and embrace the mystery, to step outside logic and reason, to let the stories work on us at a deeper, more intuitive level.
So instead of just passively listening, we should wrestle with these stories and let them transform us.
Exactly. It's active learning, engaging not just the mind, but also the heart, the soul.
Do you have examples of these ambiguous stories from the text?
Of course, there's the story of the dervish and the princess.
Yeah.
With their shifting roles, it makes us question our ideas about love, devotion, and service. Then there's King Masood and the fisher boy. Wealth and friendship take on unexpected forms, revealing deeper truths about connection.
What about the story of Sheikh Saman? What can we learn?
Sheikh Saman. His story reminds us of the challenges of the spiritual path. He's devoted, yet he's tempted by worldly beauty. It forces us to confront the distractions, the temptations that can arise on the path, and how important it is to stay committed to the divine.
Each of these tales is like a key, unlocking a different chamber in the treasure house of Sufi wisdom.
Precisely. And one of the most important keys is the concept of the Simorgh. The Simorgh represents the divine, the ultimate goal of the Sufi journey. It embodies unity and perfection, what all seekers aspire to reach.
And the birds themselves represent us, the seekers, on this arduous journey.
Right. They face challenges and temptations,
Yeah.
just like our own struggles on the spiritual path.
And the symbolism of...
Simorgh's feather.
Yes, the feather that fell to earth, sparking a longing in those who saw it, a yearning for union. It represents that fleeting glimpse of the divine. It awakens the soul to its true nature, igniting the desire to return to its source.
It's interesting that the feather fell in China, a land associated with wisdom and spiritual knowledge. They're saying, seek knowledge, even unto China. Like the pursuit of knowledge is a form of spiritual seeking, leading us closer to that ultimate source.
It's intriguing how he connects the outer journey of seeking knowledge with the inner journey of seeking the divine, a reminder that the two are intertwined, each enriching the other.
And Attar doesn't shy away
Yeah.
from the internal obstacles.
Yeah.
On this path, he points to the need to overcome the self.
The self, not our true essence, but rather the ego, the source of our desires, attachments, and the illusion of separation from God. It clings to the material world, to our individual identity, preventing us from experiencing true unity. That internal battle between our true self, the spark of the divine, and the ego that keeps us bound to the material world.
Exactly. And Attar uses vivid storytelling to review the dangers of letting the self rule.
What are some signs that we've fallen prey to the self?
He paints a picture through his stories. Imagine a hawk distracted by power and prestige, or a mouse consumed by hoarding wealth, even a nightingale trapped by the beauty of his own song. Each bird symbolizes a way the ego leads us astray.
We can get lost in our own desires, attachments, forgetting our true purpose, the yearning for union.
Precisely. To really make this point, he uses some striking analogies. He compares the self to a dog chasing its tail, a wolf prowling, a whirlpool dragging us down, or a millstone. Each image evokes a sense of danger, of being weighed down, held back by the self's grip.
These are powerful images. What tools does he offer to help us navigate this treacherous terrain?
He points to two essential virtues to transcend the self: poverty and humility.
Stripping away the layers of ego, embracing a simpler, humbler way of being.
Exactly. And the Conference of Birds is filled with stories that illuminate this path. There's Sheikh Nugani, who finds gold while sweeping the streets. Of Neshapur, he finds gold. You know what most people would do, right?
I know I would be tempted to celebrate. Haha. So what did he do?
Well, instead of keeping it,
Right.
Sheikh Nugani buys bread for the needy with it. And that's it. He forgets about the gold. Goes back to his spiritual practice like nothing happened.
Like true wealth. Isn't gold coins? It's the richness of the spirit, selfless giving.
That's it. Material things, they can distract us from our spiritual goals.
Detachment and prioritizing what truly matters. Another story that highlights humility. The tale of King Mahmud and the woodcutter.
Ah, yes, a great story. Showing that true greatness isn't worldly power, it's service and humility. In this story, King Mahmud helps an old woodcutter gather wood, even though he's a king. He shows that no task is beneath someone with.
It flips our expectations, doesn't it? Powerful people often distance themselves from those they see as lower than them. True leadership should be about service, not dominance.
Yes. Now let's talk about love on the Sufi path.
I'm guessing this isn't the romantic love we see in movies?
You're right. The love Attar talks about isn't that fleeting kind of love we often see in the world. It's a divine love, a passion for God that's more important than all earthly desires, a love that burns away impurities, a purifying fire for the soul.
So this love, it can be tough.
Exactly. It's more like a crucible than a cozy fire. Take the dervish, who falls in love with a Christian girl, a tale about the tension between worldly love and devotion to God, reminding us that even strong emotions can distract us from our spiritual path if they're not aligned with our ultimate goal.
And that image of the moth and the flame risking everything for that irresistible light.
Yes, the moth's surrender. Even if it means annihilation, it mirrors the Sufi's yearning for union with the divine, more important than personal safety or comfort.
There's beauty in that image, a willingness to surrender completely. Speaking of surrender, how about the story of Majnun and Layli?
Ah, Majnun and Layli, a classic Sufi story. Majnun's love for Layli, it drives him to madness. He gives up everything worldly, comfort, sanity, to pursue her.
He embodies this all-consuming love.
Precisely. Attar also uses a more unsettling story about a lover so devoted that he considers killing his beloved to ensure her happiness, even if he suffers. Shocking, but it shows the Sufi ideal of selfless love, where personal desire is completely surrendered for the beloved's well-being.
An extreme example, but it highlights the depths of devotion. Beyond the ego's grasp, love plays a crucial role. But Attar doesn't leave us to walk alone. He talks about the need for guidance.
Absolutely. The Sufi path, it's not for lone wolves, it's full of challenges. A guide can make all the difference. The Murshid, the spiritual guide, in the Conference of the Birds, it's the wise hoopoe who leads the birds on their quest for the Simorgh.
The hoopoe, wise and patient, he knows the path, the spiritual mentor for the birds.
Yes. Throughout the poem, he offers guidance, support, helping them to overcome their doubts and fears, reminding them of their potential and the goal of their journey.
So the hoopoe, He's more than a leader. Inspiration and encouragement, too. A reminder that we're not alone.
Exactly. Like in the story of King Masood and the fisher boy, King Masood becomes a guide and benefactor, offering not just material help, but elevating him to a place of honor in his court.
Guidance can come from anywhere. The king, he sees the potential and nurtures it.
That's it. And true mentors don't seek to control their students. They empower them to find their own potential, to let their light shine.
Recognizing the spark of the divine in another being.
Now back to the self. Attar highlights how dangerous it is to let the self rule.
Right. Those stories of the hawk, mouse, and nightingale trapped by the ego.
Yes. He offers an example. Sheikh Abu Bakr of Nishapur. Imagine this.
Yeah.
The sheikh, riding his donkey, surrounded by his disciples. Suddenly, pride washes over him.
A moment of ego, forgetting the source of his wisdom.
Precisely. And guess what? The donkey brays loudly.
Oh my, what a reminder.
It is. The sheikh, mortified, starts crying, tearing his clothes. His disciples ask him, "What's wrong?" He explains that. The donkey was a divine rebuke, humbling him, showing him that his pride was misplaced.
A funny but deep lesson. Don't take yourself too seriously.
Exactly. Even on the spiritual path, the ego can trick us. We need to stay humble and remember where our gifts come from.
It's a lifelong practice, peeling away those layers of ego.
Exactly. Attar also emphasizes that our human intellect, it can only understand so much about God, like trying to measure the ocean with a teaspoon.
Recognizing that the divine goes beyond our logical mind.
Yes. There's a story about a king whose beauty overwhelms everyone. He tries to hide it, wearing a veil, but it doesn't work. His brilliance is too powerful.
His inner light shines through.
Precisely. Attar is saying that God's beauty, his perfection, is too much for us. Our minds can't grasp it. Logic and reason alone can't capture God, like trying to capture lightning in a bottle.
So how do we understand, if not through our minds?
That's where stories and allegories come in. Attar, a master storyteller, knew that profound truths can't always be explained with logic or arguments. We need to feel them, experience them through metaphor and symbol.
The stories go beyond the intellect and speak directly to the heart, to truths that our minds might not understand.
Exactly. There's a story about a dervish so connected to God that he doesn't identify with himself. When asked how he is, he says, "I get my bread from God, then carry out the evil one's commands."
That's a paradox. What does it mean?
It means that when we surrender to God, our actions become expressions of his will, even if they don't make sense from our limited view.
Instruments in the divine orchestra, playing the notes we're given, even if we don't know the melody.
Beautiful. Another story about a Sufi washing clothes, dark clouds gather, threatening rain. But he's happy. No need for soap. The rain will do it.
Trusting in God, surrendering to the flow of life, not trying to control it all, letting go and allowing a higher power to take over.
Exactly. Detachment. It's everywhere. The conference of the birds.
Yeah.
Beyond material things. Detachment from our desires, our expectations.
Not just letting go of things, but also releasing the need to control what happens, surrendering to what is.
Exactly. There's a story about Ayaz, a slave who becomes powerful and important.
Yeah.
But he doesn't boast. He's happy wherever his king wants him, on a throne or in a dungeon.
True contentment doesn't come from outcomes or rewards. It comes from aligning our will with the divine will.
Exactly. He's loyal to the king, not to power or prestige.
True freedom is about surrendering our desires to something bigger than ourselves.
Now, Attar also talks about something difficult but important, the role of suffering in spiritual growth.
How can suffering help us grow?
He tells us about Junaid, a Sufi teacher. Imagine this. He's teaching and gets terrible news. His son has been murdered.
Oh, that's awful. I can't imagine his grief.
Yes, it's tragedy. But Junaid, he stays calm. He says what happened was meant to be part of God's plan.
He accepts it as part of a bigger plan.
That's it. It doesn't mean we deny our grief, but we understand it in a bigger context. Sufis believe that. Suffering teaches us. It helps us let go of the material world and surrender to God.
Finding meaning, even in pain, trusting that there's a reason for everything.
Yes, like this simple story about a king who gives his slave a sour apple. The slave, out of respect, takes a bite and pretends he enjoys it.
What a loyal servant, trusting his king.
Yes. The king asks him why he didn't complain. He says he trusts his master's kindness and knows no harm will come from him. Attar is showing us how to face the tough stuff on our spiritual journey.
You're not resisting or complaining, but trusting in God even when things are bad.
Precisely. Trusting that even the hard times have a purpose.
It takes a lot of faith to trust like that, especially when life is tough.
True. But Attar's stories help us. He reminds us that we're not alone, and that even when it's dark, the stars are still there.
And he challenges us to think differently about knowledge and reality. He shows the limitations of our human perspective, to see beyond the surface.
There's this story about astrologers drawing horoscopes, mapping the stars so precisely.
Like a mini universe, so much detail.
Yes, but then they wipe it all away, erase all their work.
Impermanence, even knowledge, is fleeting and limited.
Precisely. Our attempts to understand the universe, to see the future, it's all limited by how we see things. We create models and theories, but reality, it's a mystery, unfolding moment by moment.
Stay open to the unknown. Embrace the mystery. True knowledge might be beyond our intellect.
Exactly. Which brings us to one of Attar's deepest ideas. What we seek is already within us.
So we don't need to search. It's about finding what's already there. That sounds like a paradox.
It is. Attar has a story about Sheikh Kurgan. On his deathbed, he cries out, "If men could see my heart, they'd know my suffering. A wise man's secret would be revealed."
Stop worshiping idols. Be God's servant. That's all that matters. Everything else is pride.
Letting go of everything except God. Surrendering our ego to
become
become servants of the divine. Yes, and he continues. If you're not a slave, nor God, you're nothing, however brave. You're no one. Be humble, meek. Follow devotion's path. Embrace humility. Let go of yourself. Merge with the divine.
Humility and surrender, they lead us to God.
Precisely. And to show this, he tells a story about a sheik who loves two things, his horse and his son.
Normal, to cherish your family and things you own.
It is. But he says, if his son died, he would sacrifice his horse to thank God.
That's letting go of what you love. What's the message?
Detaching. Even from what we love. The sheik knows that his love could become an idol, a distraction from God.
Everything is temporary, even loved ones. Our true loyalty belongs to the eternal.
Exactly. It's a tough teaching, but it shows the radical surrender, the trust required on the Sufi path.
Attar's stories, they're full of twists and turns, making us think and delve deeper into the spiritual life.
Yes, but he also reminds us that even with the challenges, there's this desire in us, a burning desire for God. It fuels our journey.
The yearning we've talked about for something more than the material world.
Right. He shows this in the story about a bird who feels weak and small, but says, I may seem weak, lame, but I burn with aspiration's noble flame.
Even the smallest being can yearn for God, a spark that can ignite the universe.
Yes. That burning desire, it pushes us forward on the Sufi path. It helps us overcome our limits, face our fears, keep striving for God.
Like rocket fuel, launching us into space, a force that overcomes gravity and takes us to a higher realm.
Great analogy. Here's another story. Sheikh Guri and Prince Sanjar. Imagine this. The prince is riding. He sees the sheikh and his followers under a bridge.
Not exactly a grand spiritual setting.
Nope. But when the prince asks about their purpose, the sheikh gives them a choice. Become their friend, embrace their poverty, or be their enemy and stay with the world.
A tough choice. It makes you think about what's important to you.
It is. But the prince, he's wise. He chooses neither. He respects their path, but it's not his.
Respecting their choice without feeling forced to follow them.
Exactly. And this story shows us that the Sufi path, it's not for everyone. It's about detachment, surrender. It's a radical way of life, focused on God, above all else.
It's not a choice we make. It's a path that chooses us.
Precisely.
Yes.
Now let's talk about the intensity of divine love, how it can push us to extremes.
The intensity, the paradoxes.
Yes. He tells a story about a dervish so in love with God that he weeps all the time, crying out, how much longer must I weep? Desire has burnt my life in its fire.
So much longing and pain, a heart burning with separation.
Yes. But this pain, it's not bad. It shows the intensity of his love, how much he yearns for God.
So we don't avoid these feelings. They're part of the journey.
Right. Like the story of Majnun and Layli. Majnun's love for Layli drives him mad. He forgets everything else. Comfort, even sanity. He just wants her.
An allegory for the soul's desire, a love that goes beyond reason and social rules.
Exactly. This madness. It's divine intoxication, ecstatic union with God beyond our understanding.
The path of the heart, it doesn't always make sense.
You got it. Attar also shows the sacrifices this path requires. A story about a lover willing to kill his beloved to make her happy, even if he suffers.
Selfless love, giving up everything for the one you love.
Exactly. This path is a paradox. Ego's desires disappear when love seeks only the good of the other, even if it hurts you.
It changes how we think about love and sacrifice, how much devotion is possible when we go beyond the ego.
Exactly. Another symbol for this love, the moth and the candle's flame, the risks and rewards of surrendering to something higher.
The moth risks everything for a moment with the light, like the Sufi surrendering to God, even if it means losing yourself.
Yes, true love. It often demands sacrifice. The path to God can be amazing and dangerous.
Now, what about that story with the dervish who falls in love with the Christian girl?
A dilemma. A devout Muslim who leaves his faith for a Christian girl.
Going against his beliefs, giving into desire.
It seems like it, but here's the twist. It was a test by the Prophet Muhammad.
God was testing him.
Exactly. The Prophet tells him in a dream that it was all a test to see how devoted he was. And then he frees him from his love. He returns to Islam with a deeper understanding of true love.
Even desires that pull us away, they can help us grow, transform.
That's the Sufi way. Everything happens for a reason. Even our mistakes can be used for our spiritual growth.
Hope and encouragement. Even when we fall, we're guided back to the path.
Now, about guides in Sufism, having a spiritual mentor, a murshid, to help us through the challenges.
The hoopoe. In the Conference of the Birds. What makes a true guide, and how do we find one?
Attar's stories can help us here. Remember, King Masood and the fisher boy.
Yeah, the king who became the boy's guide.
Right. The king helps him, but he also sees something special in him. He helps him grow. He gives him a place in his court. A true guide is more than just a teacher. They support you and help you grow.
True mentors don't just teach. They create a space for you to grow, to find your gifts.
Exactly. Like King Mahmud and the woodcutter.
The king who helped gather wood. What else does this story teach us?
Well, the king then blocks all the roads leading out of the area.
That sounds scary, like he's gonna do something bad.
No. He does it. So the woodcutter can't leave. He wants to reward him for his humility and give him a place in his court.
So he forces them together so he can be kind.
That's it. A true guide. Helping someone worthy. Leadership is about service and empowerment.
Wisdom and virtue, they can be anywhere.
And here's something important about true guides. They're not attached to your progress.
It's not about them controlling you.
Exactly. A good guide knows that. It's your journey. Forcing you will only hurt you. They let you choose your own path, give advice, but don't control you.
You find your own way, make your own discoveries, grow in your own way.
Exactly. There's a story about a sheik and his disciple, the disciple. He changes a lot spiritually. The sheik asks him how he did it.
Wants to learn from him.
You'd think so. But the disciple says, I don't know. It's all God's grace.
So humble. He knows God helped them.
Yes. And the sheikh is happy. For him, he doesn't need the credit. A true mentor focused on the student's growth, not his own ego.
True guides care about you, not about themselves.
Exactly. But Attar warns us, not all teachers are genuine. Some want to use you for their own benefit.
So be careful who you trust.
Yes. Not everyone who says they know is trustworthy. He tells a story about a peacock who tricks some birds. He says he'll lead them to the Simorgh.
Yeah.
But he just wants glory for himself.
A fake, pretending to be spiritual, to manipulate others.
Exactly. And in the end, the birds see through him and leave.
Trust your gut. Watch out for people who care more about themselves than about you.
That's right. Attar says, look for humility, compassion, wisdom, someone who wants to help you, truly help you.
Someone who lives what they preach, not just talk.
Right. He uses an image to show us how important a true guide is, a blind man and his staff.
What does that mean?
He says a Sufi path, it's a long journey, full of obstacles, and not having a guide. It's like walking through a dark forest, blindfolded.
That sounds dangerous.
It is. He says a spiritual guide is like a staff. It supports you, guides you, helps you stay on the path, avoid the dangers.
A light in the darkness to help us see.
That's it. And the staff, it's more than just physical support. It's also the guide's wisdom, their experience to help us walk with ease.
Learning from someone who's been there before.
Yes. And that wisdom, it comes in many forms. Stories, teachings, practices, even how the guide lives.
Be open to guidance. It can come from anywhere.
Now, remember this. It's not all about the guide The student has to work too. Be receptive. Use the teachings. Make an effort.
Working together, both guide and student, learning together.
Exactly. The guide shows the way. But you have to walk it. Face your challenges. Make your own discoveries.
You're responsible for our own growth, our own spiritual journey.
That's right. Now let's look at what Attar recommends for people on the Sufi path. It's not just about knowing, it's about doing.
Putting it into practice, living it.
Exactly. Sufism is about action, changing yourself, and then changing the world. And one of the most important things is remembering God.
Keeping God in mind all the time.
Yes. And you can do this in many ways. Prayer, meditation, chanting, even just taking a moment to thank God for everything.
Seeing the sacred. In the ordinary, God is everywhere.
Exactly. Attar believed that remembering God purifies the heart, weakens the ego.
The opposite of self-absorption. It reminds us that we're part of something bigger.
You got it. And another important practice is serving others, putting your spirituality into action.
Not just thinking about yourself, but helping others.
Yeah.
Showing love and compassion, making a difference.
Precisely. Attar didn't believe in withdrawing from the world or hiding in monasteries. Bring the light of God into everything you do. Serve others with humility, kindness, generosity.
Be a light. Show love and compassion. Make the world better.
Exactly. You can serve in many ways, helping those in need or just offering a kind word.
Everyone deserves respect and compassion.
Now, there are also qualities to cultivate. For spiritual growth, it's not just what you do, it's who you are.
Changing yourself from the inside out, living the Sufi principles.
Exactly. And the most important quality is humility. Let go of the need for recognition and praise. Know that everything you have comes from God.
Recognizing that we're not the center of the universe. We're part of something bigger.
Precisely. Attar tells lots of stories about how powerful humility is. It opens the door to God's grace.
It attracts God's blessings, true abundance. That's beyond anything we can do on our own.
And then there's generosity, giving freely without expecting anything back. That's it. Generosity. It comes from gratitude. When your heart is overflowing, you recognize that it's all a gift from God, and you share.
Shifting from scarcity to abundance, from feeling like you don't have enough to a heart full of thankfulness.
Exactly. And then there's patience in Sufism. Like any journey of transformation, it takes time. You can't rush it. Perseverance, facing challenges, trusting that things will happen when they should.
We're always in a hurry to get somewhere. We forget to enjoy the journey itself, the Sufi path. It's not just about the destination, it's also about how you change along the way.
Yes, he compares it to a seed planted in the ground. It needs time to sprout, grow roots, and then finally it breaks through into the sunlight.
A perfect analogy. We always want instant results, but nature shows us true growth takes time, nurturing, trusting the process, even when you can't control it.
And then there's detachment, letting go of the outcomes of your actions.
So you don't try to control everything. You let go of what you think should happen and trust that God is in control.
Exactly. Attar says, when we hold on too tightly to what we want, we create our own suffering. We're like puppets, trying to control the strings of fate, resisting the flow of life.
Letting go of the idea we controlled everything. We're not the only ones writing our story. We're creating it with something much bigger than us.
That's it. The Sufi path is about aligning your will with God's will, trusting that even when things go wrong, there's a reason for it.
That takes a lot of faith to let go and trust, especially when things are tough.
Absolutely. But that's where Attar's stories can help us. He shows us that we're not alone.
Yeah.
And that even in the dark, there's a light guiding us.
And he talks about gratitude.
Yes, gratitude. It's important in many spiritual traditions. Why is it so important? In Sufism, well, Attar saw gratitude as a way to fight against the ego's negativity, focusing on what we don't have. Gratitude is about shifting our attention to the good things, the blessings, no matter how small, and knowing that everything's a gift.
Appreciate what you have, not what you don't have. It sounds simple, but it can really change how you see life.
Absolutely. Gratitude opens your heart to abundance. It helps you see the beauty in everything and how everything is connected.
And Attar also recommends solitude.
Yes, solitude.
Yeah.
It's important for Sufis. It's about finding time for stillness, for looking inward, to connect with your deepest self, to hear the voice of God.
Escaping the noise and chaos to a place of peace where we can be ourselves and hear our soul.
Exactly. You don't have to become a hermit. Solitude can be found in everyday life,
Yeah.
even for a few minutes.
Little moments of peace to reconnect with who we really are.
Exactly. Go for a walk in nature, meditate, or just sit in silence. Focus on your breath.
Even a few minutes of solitude can make a big difference. You feel more grounded, centered, connected to something bigger.
Now, Attar also talks about something you might not expect. Humor.
Humor on the spiritual path. That's interesting.
It might seem strange, but Attar knew that humor can help us detach from the ego seriousness. We see how silly our attachments are, and we don't take ourselves so seriously.
That letting off steam, reminding us that life isn't always so serious.
Exactly. He uses humor in his stories, little bits of wit and irony, to make a point, challenge our thinking, and laugh at ourselves.
Spirituality doesn't have to be all serious. Embrace the paradoxes, the funny side of life.
Exactly. Laughter can loosen the ego's grip and open us up to a more joyful experience of the divine.
Attar also encourages us to have a sense of wonder and awe.
Yes, the spiritual path is about rediscovering the magic we lose as we grow up. See the world like a child. Be curious, open.
Be amazed by the world, like when we were kids.
Exactly. See the divine presence in everything, from a grain of sand to the stars in the sky.
The sacred is everywhere, in every moment.
Now, something really interesting about Attar is his use of paradox.
Right, those statements that don't seem to make sense, but they point to a deeper truth, like those Zen koans.
Yes, Attar knew that. We can't always understand God through logic. Paradox is a way to express truths that are beyond words in our minds.
It's a different way of knowing, beyond thinking, a deeper understanding.
Exactly. And the Conference of the Birds has many of these, like the Simorgh is closer than your own jugular vein.
Wow. It means God is closer than we think.
Exactly. God isn't far away. He's right here with us, closer than our breath, closer than our heart.
We don't have to travel or do rituals to find God. He's already inside us.
Exactly. Here's another paradox. To find the way, you must lose the way.
It sounds like a riddle. What does it mean?
Let go of your ideas, your expectations, your comfort zone. Be open to the unknown. Trust that the path will show itself.
Surrender. Don't try to control everything. Trust that you'll be guided.
Right. And that's surrender. It's in another paradox. To die before you die.
Is he talking about actually dying?
No, not real death. He's talking about the death of your ego, your self-importance, your attachment to things. Only by letting these go can we truly live, experience everything, and be free with God.
Letting go of who you think you are to find out who you really are.
Yes, a radical change. Letting go of the old you to become someone new. It can be hard, even painful. But Attar says it's the only way to be free.
Like a caterpillar, turning into a butterfly. Death and rebirth. Letting go to become something new.
And the most mind-bending paradox, you are the Simorgh.
Wait, we are God. How can we be both? The one searching and the one being searched for.
That's the paradox. Our true nature is divine. We're one with God, but we don't see it because we think we're separate, individual.
So we need to realize that we're already divine.
Exactly. There's a story about a man who's so close to God that when asked, "Who are you?" he answers, "I am the truth."
A bold statement, like Mansur al-Hallaj, the Sufi mystic.
Yes, it's the ultimate realization on the Sufi path. When you become one with God.
Like a wave that's part of the ocean. We're all connected.
But Attar doesn't just want us to think about these paradoxes. He wants us to experience them, to feel them in our hearts.
Not just thinking, but feeling, intuition, direct experience, not just concept.
Exactly. That's where his poetry is so powerful. His words, they evoke a feeling of mystery, wonder, and awe. They speak to your soul.
A portal to another world where everything is connected.
Attar's work, written over 800 years ago, it still inspires people today. It's a guide for the spiritual journey, a map for our inner world, and a reminder that what we're looking for is already inside us.
It's amazing how his words can still touch us after all this time. It shows how timeless his message is and how we all yearn for God.
It does. His poetry shows us the power of words to connect us across time and space, to touch our hearts and help us awaken spiritually.
As we finish our deep dive into Attar's The Conference of the Birds, what are some key things for our listeners to take away?
I think Attar wants us to question everything, see beyond the surface, and connect with God. He shows us that. The spiritual path isn't about rules, it's about who you are. Humility, generosity, patience, gratitude. Be open to the unknown.
Living these virtues, not just talking about them.
Exactly. He also wants us to be joyful, to see the funny side of things, to be amazed by life.
The journey itself is a gift, a chance to grow, to change, to discover who we really are.
Yes. And he leaves us with this image. The birds, they represent us. They finally reach the Simorgh, and they realize they are the Simorgh.
It reminds us that we're both the one searching and the one being searched for. God is within us.
Exactly. Maybe the point of the journey isn't about reaching a goal, it's about realizing we're already there.
What a beautiful message to help us on our journey of self-discovery and spiritual growth. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Attar's The Conference of the Birds.
It's been a pleasure talking about these teachings with you.
And thank you to our listeners. We hope Attar's words have inspired you and filled you with a sense of wonder.
With a sense of wonder.